You came back. Good. Pull up a chair and try not to make a sound. This is the last whisper. Imagine waking up at 3 in the morning, not because of a nightmare, not because of a noise, but because something in your gut tells you something is wrong. You reach for your phone, pull up a security camera you set up just days before, and there on that tiny screen, you see her. A frail, 96-year-old woman, standing outside your locked bedroom door. But she's not standing the way a person stands. Her spine is bent backward, her head is hanging loose, and something you can't see, is holding her up like a puppet. That footage was real, and what came next was worse. Cheryl had spent the better part of a year living in that old farmhouse, and for most of it, nothing unusual had ever happened. The house itself sat on a sprawling piece of rural land, the nearest neighbor nearly half a mile away. It was the kind of quiet that city people romanticize, but the kind that, once something starts to feel wrong, becomes absolutely suffocating. She was there as a caregiver for an elderly woman named Magdalene, 96 years old, sharp enough to remember your name, fragile enough that climbing a flight of stairs was out of the question. Magdalene had been a beloved figure in Cheryl's family for generations. When it became clear she could no longer live alone safely, Cheryl stepped up. No hesitation. She moved in, set a routine, and committed to seeing this through. For months, it was exactly what she expected. Exhausting, but manageable. Magdalene was sweet, repetitive in the way dementia makes people, but never difficult. She'd ask the same question 3 times in an hour, laugh at her own jokes, shuffle down the hall to the bathroom at night. Normal. All of it completely normal. Then one night, Cheryl heard footsteps. Not Magdalene's usual slow drag. Those came with the creak of the bedroom door, the soft shuffle of slippers. These footsteps were different. They moved with a strange, deliberate rhythm, and underneath each step, there was a sound that made Cheryl's skin crawl. A faint, dry clicking, like long fingernails tapping against hardwood. She had trimmed Magdalene's nails herself just that afternoon. Every single one. She pressed her ear against her bedroom door and listened. The footsteps moved down the hall, stopped in front of Magdalene's room, and then the door creaked open. Cheryl waited. No more movement, no return trip to bed, just silence. She made herself look. She opened her door just a crack, peered into the darkness, and saw. With the pale moonlight cutting through the far window, a silhouette crouched over Magdalene's bed. Tall, hunched, not touching but hovering, close, too close, above the old woman who lay there asleep. Before Cheryl could process what she was seeing, the light clicked on. Magdalene was sitting straight up, wide awake, staring at Cheryl like she'd been watching her the whole time. The silhouette, gone. Just like that. Cheryl told herself she was overtired. She told herself dementia does strange things, and sleep deprivation does stranger things to the person watching. She went back to bed and waited for the unease to pass. It didn't. A few nights later, Magdalene's shuffling footsteps came again. This time, unmistakably, accompanied by that clicking sound. The bedroom door opened. The footsteps moved down the hall and stopped directly outside Cheryl's door. And then, 3 quiet taps. Deliberate, slow. Tap, tap, tap. Cheryl called out Magdalene's name. Silence. Then mumbling, low, close, just on the other side of the door, but none of it decipherable. Not a single word she could make out, even though whoever was out there was close enough to touch. It went on for minutes, then it stopped, and Magdalene was back in bed, asleep, as if she'd never left. After Cheryl's mother came for a check-in visit, they agreed on a plan. Motion-activated cameras, small ones, unobtrusive, connected through Cheryl's mobile hotspot. One facing Magdalene's bedroom door at the far end of the hall, one near the front entrance, pointed toward the staircase. If Magdalene was wandering at night, they'd catch it. They'd know exactly where she was going and when. That first night with the cameras, nothing happened. Cheryl almost convinced herself the whole thing had been in her head. Then she woke up and found the coffee maker had already been set up. Grounds loaded, water filled, her favorite mug placed right beside it. She had not done that. She never set up the coffee the night before, always waited until morning. And the cameras hadn't recorded a single movement overnight. Not one. She stared at that coffee maker for a long time. The next night, the tapping came back. This time, Cheryl didn't open the door. She opened the camera app on her phone and watched the live feed. And there was Magdalene standing in front of the door, holding her arm out, her finger making the motion of tapping, but not actually making contact with the door. The sound was coming from somewhere else. Then Cheryl noticed it. At the tip of Magdalene's finger, something extended outward, like a shadow in the shape of a claw. That shadow was making contact with the door. Magdalene's head was rolling back on her neck, loose, swinging from side to side. Then it snapped forward, and she reached for the doorknob. She turned it, or tried to. The door was locked. Whatever was controlling her pulled that hand at the knob again and again, the frustration escalating, the movements becoming sharper. Then a voice came through the door. It wasn't Magdalene's voice. It was deep, and wrong in a way that's hard to describe, like the sound was being forced through a body it didn't belong to. It said, "Let me in, dearie. I can't do it myself with this old body." Then it laughed. Magdalene's laugh, but hollowed out, stretched into something grotesque. Cheryl screamed back at it, told it to leave, told it to go back to wherever it came from. The response came without a pause. "I'm the one who gives orders around here. You'll see soon enough." And then Magdalene, or the thing using her, was lifted off the ground, feet dangling, turned around, and floated, slowly, backward into the bedroom, her fingers dragging along the wall as the door eased shut behind her. Cheryl held herself together just long enough to cry herself to sleep. The footage was still there in the morning. She watched it again to confirm she wasn't losing her mind, and it was all there, exactly as it had happened. But when she tried to call her mother, the phone wouldn't dial out, texts wouldn't send, the internet wouldn't load. The only thing still working was the hotspot keeping the cameras online. She thought about that. The thing had isolated her from the outside world but kept the cameras running. It wanted her watching. She made it through one more day, got Magdalene through breakfast, through lunch, through a nap, brewed a full pot of coffee that night to stay awake, locked herself in her room, and sat with her phone watching the feeds. The night passed slowly. Then, near dawn, she made the mistake of slipping out to use the bathroom. When she stepped back into the hallway, the voice came from behind her. "Your heart betrays you." She turned. Magdalene was there. Spine arched backward, body contorted in ways that no living person's body should be able to move, face twisted into something that was no longer Magdalene's face at all, eyes pushed back into the skull, the skin around them streaked with something dark. Between Cheryl and her locked bedroom door, she ran the only direction she could, toward the staircase, up 2 flights, locked herself in an upstairs room and pulled up the camera feed with shaking hands. On the screen, she watched the thing carry Magdalene to the stairwell landing. The sun was just starting to come up outside the window, and then, visible for the first time, she could see the shape of what was doing this. Tall, dark, fingers stretched downward, tendrils of shadow running from its hands directly into Magdalene's body, controlling her like a marionette. It lifted her, high up into the air, suspended in the stairwell. Then a knock at the front door. Her mother's voice. "Hello? Is everyone okay?" Cheryl screamed. Her mother couldn't hear her. The shadow creature turned toward the camera, and then it dissolved. Not into Magdalene this time, into nothing, into the air. And Magdalene dropped. The sound she hit the floor with was something Cheryl will never be able to forget. Her mother got inside, found Magdalene, called for help. Magdalene was already gone. The paramedics ruled it a fall. The investigation concluded it was a tragic accident. A frail woman with dementia who, in a confused state, had wandered to a part of the house she had no business being in. Case closed. The footage was gone. Every recording from every night, deleted. The cameras had no memory of any of it. There was nothing left to show anyone. Cheryl moved back to her mother's house. She didn't try to explain what had happened. She let people believe what they wanted to believe. For a while, she told herself it was over. That whatever had been in that house had stayed in that house, that it was attached to Magdalene or to the property or to something that no longer had any reason to come looking for her. She almost had herself convinced. Then last night, alone in her childhood bedroom, in a house she'd grown up in, miles away from that farmhouse, she heard it. 3 quiet sounds against her bedroom door. Tap, tap, tap. Here's what makes this story genuinely terrifying, and it's not the contorted body or the voice that wasn't Magdalene's voice, it's the patience. Whatever this thing was, it didn't rush. It spent weeks making Cheryl doubt herself. It destroyed the evidence. It isolated her. It waited until she was completely alone and completely vulnerable before it made its final move. And now, it followed her home. Demonologists and paranormal researchers who study cases like this have a name for entities that behave this way. They call them attachers. Beings that don't haunt places, they haunt people. They feed off of fear and doubt. They're most dangerous not when they're visible, but in the weeks before, when their victim is slowly being conditioned to question their own sanity. What Cheryl described, the shadow tendrils, the puppet-like control, the deliberate erasure of evidence, matches a pattern documented in cases across multiple continents. The entity doesn't want to be seen, it wants to be doubted, because a person who doubts themselves is a person who doesn't call for help. Think about that, because here's the question you need to sit with. If something like this can follow someone out of one location and into another, across miles, across time, what exactly is the boundary that keeps it from going further? What stops it from walking through your door? Nobody knows. And that's the part that should keep you up at night.